Climbing the Pocket Mondays, where we turn your Mondays purple. It's me and Dave tonight. We're going to talk about what happened yesterday, the disappointments and everything. And we might even talk about how to actually take a snap from under center. So stay tuned and catch all the fun stuff.
In a world where Mondays can be black, but turn to purple, join Climbing the Pocket and Daily Norseman Productions as they present CTP Mondays. Show features Tyler Fornes and Deshaun Vaughn as they talk your Minnesota Vikings with you, the fans.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We're back here for another Monday. It's me, Deshaun, and our trusted producer, Dave. We're going to be steering the ship tonight, talking about that, whatever that was yesterday.
It's called a football game, Deshaun.
I mean, I guess you could call it that.
A loss. Another hard loss.
Yeah. So real quick, we got Mary in the comments. We got some trusty Clifford here. We're waiting for Raymond and some other guys that usually call me out on my crap. So nice to see you guys in as you guys start flowing in. But let's get right to it. Yesterday, we saw the Vikings not play the best game ever against a team that, in my opinion, really isn't all that good. So let's talk about what went wrong. Kirk was off on a lot of throws. It just was not Cousins' day yesterday. He missed. He threw a really bad interception. He was kind of all over the field, kind of standing in the face of pressure. And the Vikings just couldn't get anything started. Dave, what do you think went wrong yesterday?
Let me count the ways. First off, it started out this way. In the first half, let me find it. Right here, our friend Eric Thompson writes, in the first half, when the Vikings never trailed, Thielen, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 62 yards, 2 TDs. Jefferson, 5 targets, 2 receptions, 45 yards. I know everybody can read it, but for those on the podcast later, this is the way it's going to go. Second half, when the Vikings trailed all but for 3.5 minutes, Thielen, 2 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards. Jefferson, 4 targets and 43 yards. So, yes, it did not go well. The reason being was Kirk Cousins comes out in that second half on the first drive and he throws that interception. And once that happens, the way Kirk Cousins is made up mentally, it's not physically, it's mentally, he goes back into his shell. I've talked before talking about him turtling. He goes back into his shell, right? And from there on in, we saw check down, check down, check down, check down, check down to Conklin, check down to Ham, check down, check down, check down, check down. Not taking those risky passes that produce positive plays and long positive plays. Hey there, Karthik. Welcome back. Yes. We're talking about the game yesterday, and it's not good. But Kirk Cousins does that. And then to pick up on what friend of the show, Phil Mackey, says, in the most critical time, the Vikings have kept it close, even with the injuries, and even with a depleted line on the defense, and the defense is not playing so well, they kept it within one score. And then we get back to that, fourth quarter comeback. Kirk the Magnificent getting ready to come back, and he drives down, and then we get in the scoring range, and he gets flustered. And there's a play called. And then we're on, what was it? 4th and goal, and it's on like the 3-yard line. And there's a play, and KJ Osborn and Justin Jefferson supposedly line up on the wrong side. And so it's like, hey, I can understand one receiver getting the call wrong. I can't understand two. That doesn't sound right. There's some conflicting there. I don't know who's calling the calls, whether it's quarterback coach or if it's Clint Kubiak or whatever it is, but it's wrong. Kirk gets up there. He's flustered. The guys are on the wrong side. That ain't right. It isn't how it's lined up on the chalkboard the way it's supposed to be, like he likes it. So he starts yelling, get over here, get over here, get over here. Right? So they move, and he lines up under the guard. Would you like to see that? I've got that right here. Here it is. There he goes. He calls everybody over, waving his arm. Get over there. So he moves everybody over, and then he gets ready he lines up under the guard, and Alexander Madison goes, hey, what the fuck? Right? You got to move over. And he calls timeout. And if you looked there at the end, Justin Jefferson's waving his hands going, hey, what the hell's your problem? It was like last year when he yelled at him and go, fuck, throw the flag. It's the same thing. And, hey, maybe I've been accused of being a Kirk hater. I got that. I haven't. I lived in Virginia at the time. I knew how Kirk was. I didn't want him on the team, but he got there. Karthik, Garrett calls to make the check, not Cousins. Yes, but Garrett wasn't in there. Mason Cole was calling the calls. But yes, that is the case. But Kirk Cousins has the power to change anything he wants at the line. He chooses not to.
Oh, Jimmy G looked awful, and that's
Jimmy
and that's
G
what the
was
most.
bad.
That's
Even
the
when
most
Kirk
frustrating
a bad
thing.
day, he looked better than Jimmy G.
Right. That was the most frustrating about this game is that Jimmy Garoppolo was awful. He was not good. We just left everybody like wide open, and that's just kind of what happens once the run game starts to go. The 49ers called some beautiful plays. There was just plays where there was nothing you could do about it. They would send a motion, pull a guy under, leave a guy wide open. There was just really nothing you could do about it. So once they kind of had that going, it was kind of just game over for the defense, and they were just going to be able to score at will. But in my perspective, the turning point of this game was in the first half. I believe the Vikings were up 14-7, and they had the football. They went 3-and-out. when your defense is injured and you don't have a D-line rotation, you cannot afford drives like that. They
Mm-hmm.
had a chance to force the 49ers to play a completely different game, and we couldn't do it. The defense was playing well enough for the offense to take over the game and just back the 49ers into a corner and make them play the game you wanted them to play.
Karthik,
But
I hope that's the case. Actually, I hope that's not the case. I hope he wants him next year. But anyways, beside the point.
yeah, so it's like, and that was just that was the biggest moment for me. There was a lot of stuff that happened after that, obviously, but that right there was it was such a big moment for me because you had the opportunity to really change things for the defense. Now, the defense was gassed, man. These
Oh
guys,
yeah.
I mean, there was no rotation there, and then once Anthony Barr went out, it was just kind of over. At that point, it was like
Well,
defense isn't going to be able to do anything for you.
Karthik can attest when we had on Niner sickness during a week. The game plan for them to win was to own the time of possession, and they did it almost 2-1, and that would gas our defense. We said it last week, and that's exactly what happened. GMAC, you asked a question where in Virginia. I started out in central Virginia, had a nice 20 plus acres out in the middle of nowhere. Then I moved to Va Beach, to let you know. But the game plan was keep the defense on the field, gas them. We had all of our starting defensive line is out for whatever reason. And it's a myriad of who. Right, Hunter's out with his pec. He's been out for a while. Tomlinson went out with COVID. He's still out. Patrick Peterson was added today to the COVID IR with a positive test on Monday. He, however, is vaccinated, so if he generates 2 positive, we're good for the Lions game. If he doesn't, we're hurting. G-Back on the western end. Beautiful mountains. I've crossed them many times, GMAC. Karthik talking about Thielen having a bigger game than Jefferson. Yes, but he wasn't utilized in the second half. Neither of them were. It's just we played. You are 100% correct. The defense played good enough to win if the offense would have maximized the scoring, and they did not. And unfortunately, with the injuries that we do have on the defense, some of these guys will come back. Tomlinson will come back. Patrick Peterson eventually will come back. Those guys will help. We won't see Everson Griffin, too much whiskey. Not that that's a bad thing. We won't see Everson Griffin for at least, they said he's going to be out 3 weeks is what I heard. Minimum. However, DJ Onum did step up. I appreciate that. That's good to see. But Tomlinson, Peterson, so all we have left, and it looks like Barr's out. We talked about the injuries. Barr's out. Looks like a hammy. You know that takes a while to get right. We need to have the offense outscore everybody. We need to adopt the old Denny Green philosophy. I don't care how much you score, we're going to outscore you. That was Denny Green. He said, my defense can get a stop or two, but you're not going to stop my offense. So if our offense stays aggressive, which yesterday there seemed to be a bunch of bipolar play calling, and this comes down to who's calling the plays. This is Kubiak or is it QB coach? And are they conflicting? Because there's times when we went aggressive and there was times when we went conservative. And it's, conservative drives us all absolutely bananas. And even Mike Zimmer says, no, I want you to be aggressive. And we were 3rd and long, and they throw a tech down. And it's just like, just driving us crazy. We've got to be able to be aggressive if we want any chance of getting into the playoffs and continuing in the playoffs. That's got to be our identity this week or this year, and it hasn't. Now, what adjustments do we need to make since we know Dalvin Cook went down with a torn labrum? Supposedly, Mike Zimmer says it wasn't a torn labrum. It was reported a torn labrum and a dislocation. What adjustments do we need to make in the offense to cover for that?
So what I think is that I think Kene Wangu will be a guy that can kind of cover some of your deficiencies. He's now what I got from Kene Wangu when he was coming out of college was that he was just a straight line speed runner, and that's all. And to be fair, that's all he really showed. It was straight line speed. He would hit a hole, he would go, he wouldn't make two cuts. But this is now back-to-back kickoff returns where we're seeing him make people miss. He's not just running by guys. He's making people miss. He's jumping over people, and he's breaking tackles. So you need to get this guy touches on the field. And I know Alexander Madison he's going to be the lead back for a couple of weeks. I don't know. I just don't like giving this guy too many carries. I don't know. I just feel like you have something special there in Kene Wangu, and you have to almost kind of use him as that gadget kind of player and set up plays for him to get him in the open field because he has special athleticism. That's like having Kene Wangu is like having Tyreek Hill on your offense at running back. It's like having someone who can almost match maybe the athleticism of a Cordero Patterson. So I think they need to get back to the drawing board and do a little something different on offense to get him involved. Obviously, you have Jefferson and Thielen. People are going to start locking in on them too. Maybe time for KJ Osborn to start to come alive again like he was at the beginning of the season. But most importantly, the offensive line, we need to get – so the offensive line wasn't horrible yesterday. We just – for some odd reason, we just cannot – run block anymore. I don't know what happened or what's going on, but the run blocking is awful. It's been awful for weeks on end. But
according to PFF, our boys did well on the.
They did okay, but there was I think most specifically, I think we're talking about Ali Udoh here, which it pains me to say because I was pounding the table for him. Pound on the table for Ollie, man. And he was okay to start the season, but I think it might be time to look at. And they said this before. I can't remember. I think someone reported in practice they were maybe going with Bradbury at guard, and like a second package or whatever.
That sneaked out in a tweet today. Yes.
So we had some super encouraging things. One, Mason Cole had like his highest graded game ever. He was awesome. Mason Cole came out there. And in my opinion, I think Mason Cole earned a start next season. You can bring him back for ultra cheap. You don't have to pay Bradbury $12 million or whatever in 2023 or whatever. So you don't have to pick
a fifth-year option. We're not going to pay him for that fifth-year option. No.
Darrisaw, despite getting injured and giving up that early sack that was a tad bit disappointing, gave Nick Bosa his worst graded game of the season. He won his matchup against Nick Bosa. I mean, Bosa had a sack. You take that. That's Nick Bosa.
Bosa played both sides.
Right. And that's probably why he did play both sides, because Darrisaw was out there giving him the work. But, I mean, he handled Bosa not like a rookie, and that's the kind of rebound game you want to see when he kind of had a disappointing game against Preston Smith. He came back against a DN that's much better, much more athletic. He did give up a sack, but he handled himself very well. Hopefully that injury is not too big. He's able to get back next week. We'll see. Rashad Hill did well in the relief, which is weird. For some odd reason, he always does well in relief. But when you ask him to start,
it's when you make him a starter that he has problems.
Right. So as of right now, I think solidifying that front five is your biggest thing. Now, that means you need to take Udoh out and put Bradbury in. I'm not sure how that's going to work because Udoh when he's not holding, when Udoh is not holding, he's solid in pass pro. He hasn't been a massive issue in pass pro, but when you hold that much, I don't know.
And that's how he was taught, and it's got to be untaught or refined to where you're holding on the inside like this. There's ways offensive linemen can hold. Trust me, I know. There's ways you can hold and get away with it. But when you
Right.
start
I think
hooking
he's
around the neck
on the outside.
or
Yeah.
around the body, you can't get away with it, especially when you spin the guy. It doesn't work. You're going to get flags every time. It's just the way it is. We got a ton of stuff in the coming through here. Darrisaw, from what I gather, Karthik was axling about it. Darrisaw, they were getting ready to put him back in. So I don't think his injury, I think it was an ankle, and I think they just taped it up, which is normal for football players. You have low ankle sprains, you just tape the heck out of it, and you're good to go. So I think he'll be back. Somebody had mentioned Dalvin Cook. I think it was Dan talking about Dalvin Cook maybe back in 2 weeks. Daniel, I hope not. I think that's a little bit too quick. I understand why we might want him that way, but let's try. He's already supposedly playing with a labrum tail on this, or tear on this side, and he just got it on this side. That's, I don't know about that. We shall see. Right. It's normally 3 weeks, and then they come back. I'd like to see him healthy and fresh and ready and more explosive, actually. But I would like to see what Kene can do in that offensive lineup. Now, what you talked about, you want to see Kene more, Deshaun. I do too. I think he has the speed. I think he can see the holes. I think he can make the moves. I think he can cut. And supposedly, from what I'm hearing, he can cut and not slow down. That's amazing, right? He is very good.
That's what you want.
Mike Zimmer today in his press conference, when asked about Kene, talked about why he isn't playing more is the fact that, like all rookies in the running back core, he needs to learn to pass block. Well, Mike, yes, that's true. They all need to do that. But you can cover that up in other ways if the benefit of using him as a runner outweighs that as a pass blocker. Now, question to you, not on our cheat sheet and agenda, with Dalvin Cook out, do you think we throw more?
I think we throw more out of, it depends. So these next upcoming games are not against great defenses. So we play the Lions, we play the Steelers after that, I believe, and then
the Bears.
Who's after that?
Oh my.
Bears. So the Bears defense is falling apart. Mac was put on season-ending IR, I believe. The Steelers defense is coming down too, and the Lions defense is always awful. So we could see them go with the same game plan they have before, just because Madison is a capable 3-down back. He's not as good as Dalvin Cook, but he's capable.
Especially after he gets lathered up.
Right. So the thing they're going to do, they're going to go back to the Seahawks game and look at him. And then he had another game this year where he went for like 112. I think it was against the Lions, maybe. And they're going to look at that game and go, how can we maximize Alexander Madison, instead of going and say, how can we maximize Jefferson or Thielen? I do believe we need to throw. I don't think we need to throw more. I think we need to maximize our attempts. We did not really attack the middle of the field very well last game. I feel like it was a lot either really short or really deep, which is the stuff that we kind of were doing last time. But when we were playing the Packers and the Chargers, we were killing the intermediate game. Like 11 to 19 area, we were doing so well in. So I would like to see us turn some of those checkdowns back to those 10, 11-yard throws instead of forcing more attempts in the passing game when we don't, if it doesn't necessitate that. So not necessarily pass more. I want to see better quality of the attempts.
And we've been passing at over a 60% rate this year, which for Those that scream, Mike Zimmer's conservative, he loves to run. Literally, that blows their mind. We have been over at 60%. Karthik, thank you for my backdrop. It is my room. That is my artwork. I do art. That is what I do on the side. I enjoy it, and if you want a commission, contact me.
Yeah, I might need one of those because mine is looking a little. Mine's looking
Oh
a little
yes,
blank back there.
the worst thing on videos is blank white walls. Anyways, at least you have wainscoting there to break it up. G-Mac, Zimmer likes to keep it close. We've seen that, G-Mac. I don't know how much of it is true, though. I think in his heart of hearts, he would love to go out there and run up the score. But that's me. I've been called out on that before. We'll see.
Yeah. So, what do we need? How do we turn this around, man? The Vikings can be a scary team.
Yes.
They can be the team that nobody wants to play, but how do they stay consistent? Now, I don't like to give. Now, the officiating was awful, but the Vikings were never in position to even blame officiating. There was a lot of weird stuff going on that game. Whatever. We were never really in a position for it to defeat us that much. I think the Thielen catch, we ended up scoring on that drive anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the Osborn pass interference, that wasn't a pass interference. And if Cousins throws an accurate pass to Jefferson, we get a first down. So we didn't really deserve that call either. Getting healthy on the defense is going to be the number one thing. And that's kind of like the hardest thing right now. Killing Willikes hasn't been activated yet. I'm still waiting to hear something on that. I
wonder why he wasn't this last week.
Right. So I'm still trying to, I guess we're waiting this week to see if we get something from that, because he had that really good game against Baltimore and just nothing just hasn't been activated since then. And then we get Pierce. Hopefully we get Pierce back, because I think last game was his third game on IR, I believe, because he went right before the Chargers game, right? So then Chargers back. Yeah. So hopefully Pierce could be back. He would give, even if he's not that big of a rusher at this point in time, the defensive lines just needs bodies, because James Litch actually played a solid game. He was in position a lot of the times, but the 49ers really utilized a lot of their cutbacks, and that's kind of where he was getting beat at. But, bringing back a dominant run stopper, having Watts has been playing amazing. 6 pressures yesterday. He's doing well as a full-time player. Now, I just looked this up. He would need, and he probably won't get it, but he would need an average about 5 pressures a game. But he could end up almost reaching Richardson's pressures from 2018, which is like the most pressures by our Vikings interior for a long time, I think, since like Tom Johnson or something like that. So he has 21 on the season, and I think 4 sacks. So we'll see where that goes. But getting bodies back, getting those 3 guys back, getting Killing Willikes back, it's going to kind of, they need to stay there at the health. DJ Wonnum had and that rep by DJ Wonnum was very good. That was a Danielle Hunter level rep, and that's kind of where we want to see him.
That was probably his best game, so definitely this season. But
yeah, yes. I think that was like that pass rush. He didn't get a sack, but he like produced the pressure, and I think that pass ended up incomplete.
Oh, he got credited with 1 sack this week.
Yeah, probably the best rep, one of the best reps I've ever seen in his career. That was like he spin off, split up double team, got to the quarterback. Like that's not something that you see out of him too much, but hopefully that's something that he can continue to build upon. So, and like you said, Patrick Peterson is vaccinated. If he ends up missing this game, it's not a huge deal. Lions wide receiver core is depleted. We still have Dantzler. Mac Alexander had a game to forget, man. It was awful stuff out there. But getting this defense back and healthy is going to be the main thing to getting this team to the point where they could compete with anybody in the playoffs. Because we just saw them go toe-to-toe with the Packers team that beat the Rams. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the Vikings are like horrible. They have it within themselves to play against good teams. And if we do make the playoffs, I think we'll end up being matched up against who's the number 1 seed in the NFC right now is the Buccaneers, right? Or the Cardinals. So I think we're end up matched up against the Cardinals or the Buccaneers if we end up making the playoffs. And we took the Cardinals to a field goal, and then the Bucs we don't match up well against at all. But what we need out of Kirk Cousins is something that we just has not gotten. It's something that he doesn't really do his entire career. We need consistency, and that's where I come in and I say, regardless of what happens at the end of this season, the Vikings have to reset. And I think that's what you learned from Sunday's game. You beat the Chargers, you beat the Packers, and you come into 40 to San Francisco. Yes, your entire defensive line is out. It's whatever. But you kind of lay this stinker. Like, you had a kick return for a touchdown and you lost the game. Like, that's awful. Like, stuff like that can't happen. So I think this is kind of where the front office says, yes, we're doing things well this year. We almost got back to 500. But regardless of what happens, we still need to reset this thing and kind of salvage some of the stuff that they have. You have Darrisaw, who's out there playing like a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. You have Mason Cole coming into his own at center. You have Ezra Cleveland turning into above average guards, maybe even say good. You still have Dalvin Cook, will come back out here next year. You have Jefferson. You have Thielen still tied for, I think Thielen's like tied for first place in touchdowns. You still have this base of players, and most of them are super young. Still fight this season, still put your best foot forward. But I don't want to see this team make the playoffs, even if we go in and upset somebody and pull what we did the other year when we extended Kirk Cousins.
We'll probably make the playoffs. Get ready for that. We are, as my previous 2 partners used to say, worst of the best and best of the worst, or the king of the dipshits. And and literally that's where we've been with this squad. It is, whether it's Kirk Cousins, whether it's Mike Zimmer, whether it's Rick Spielman, or the combination of all 3, they've only managed that far. And it's frustrating for all of us. For those that want to make, a Super Bowl before we die, right? Like me, I'm ready for that Super Bowl before we die. I remember watching the last Super Bowls the Vikings were in, but I was a kid, right? I want to get there and win one. And that's hard to do when we keep producing this barely 500, barely over 500, win one and out, type deal every year. It gets frustrating, gets hard on the heart, gets hard when we, are so many close games. It's time. I always say it can always get worse. And trust me, people, it can always get worse. You talked about Udoh before. Udoh had a horrible grade, right? The rest of the offensive line graded great by PFF. Udoh was terrible, right? And people say, well, we got to replace him. Wyatt Davis. We got Wyatt Davis. Why aren't we playing Wyatt Davis, right? Well, we used to yell about Drew Samia. Why aren't we playing Drew Samia? Drew Samia was a great guy in college. And then we stuck him in, and we all saw how that went. It could go that way if we, reset absolutely everything. But if you don't reset everything, we've got this 9-8 season, barely getting into the playoffs, probably, getting beaten the first round, or if making the second round, before we're outclassed, right? And Kirk Cousins freezes and does his head in the turtle thing, gets pissed off, throws a tantrum, throws the ball out of bounds, throws the ball at the receiver's feet, throws the ball in the 5th row, and we're done, right? It's that stuff that we need to reset. Get that out of our minds, flush it, and start anew. Because I don't think, unless the Vikings suddenly figure out the magic formula, which is mathematically possible and theoretically possible, and make it all the way to the Super Bowl, it's rough. I don't see this repeating to bring it all back shit. that we've had in the last few years. It needs to go. Karthik, you're surprised Kyle out Coach Zimmer. That's happened. I'm not so much as he out-coached as he game planned and took advantage of what was common sense stuff. It is what it is.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't say Shanahan outcoached Zim. Shanahan called some good stuff, and that's to be expected. Shanahan's one of the best play callers in the NFL. His motion game is like unmatched. But I think for Zimmer to hold the 49ers to 14 points in the first half was great. Unfortunately, his offense couldn't keep up. We saw Zim do some aggressive stuff, and I think that was great. That's something that we've seen become a trend over the last 3 to 4 weeks is Zim staying aggressive. That fourth down call was great. I didn't so much agree with the other fourth down call, though. I kind of wish they would have kicked the field goal there and then touchdown wins the game. Mm-hmm. But they went for it. They didn't get it. Whatever, you live. So Zimmer, I might be one of the only ones to think this, but I think Zimmer's kind of earned himself a chance to head coach again somewhere else. Obviously, I think a divorce between the Vikings and Zimmer is good for both sides. Zimmer needs to get away from the Minnesota Vikings, man. They're just not. It's not good here no more. But we've seen Zim do some great stuff with not a lot on his defense.
Right. He knows how to scheme. Dan talked about he's not a good defensive guy as we think. I disagree. The man has a defense named after him in the NFL. He is literally that good. He knows how to scheme games and knows how to throw people off their game. Part of it, does he have the players he wants healthy? And the answer to that is no. A lot of those players since have gotten old and are playing like the way they want. But I do think he is as good as a defensive genius as there can be in the NFL. It's just his time, I think, is up here in Minnesota. I think he's worn out his welcome at this point, unless something turns around and, we make a run in the playoffs, make it all the way to the Super Bowl, and win the Super Bowl, and then build him a damn statue, and then everybody will be happy. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's unlikely, very unlikely. Most likely we're going to continue with the same king of the dipshit teams.
I think Zim should go somewhere where he has a good quarterback. I think
that's a question that's been brought up. How would Zimmer be if he had that quality quarterback?
You send Zim to the Chiefs, I don't see how anybody beats that team. For real, send Zim to the Chiefs, let the Chiefs tweak their offense, because their offense is coming back. I mean, you knew you weren't going to hold Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to a negative record all season. I think they're on, a 3 or 4 game win streak right now, and they're, back atop of the AFC behind the Ravens. So send Zimmer to the Chiefs, let him fix that defense, and the Chiefs are good, for a long time. And we're starting to see that Zim doesn't need a whole lot for his defense to be competent. He could turn that Chiefs defense competent in one season. And then you get an offense that's still probably one of the best in the NFL, and that's going to continue to be one of the best. And I think maybe we should trade him to the Chiefs for a first-round pick to be their DC. Don't let him go. Let's trade him out of here like they did John Gruden.
Hey, we almost did it with Dallas. Yes. That would have been the better move and kept Stefanski a couple of years ago. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I'm almost getting, like people have said online in our group, thinking Zim's getting to the I don't give a fuck mode. He's tired of this. He's tired of beating his head against a brick wall. Whether it be from the front office, and I know you don't blame the front office. I do. And, play from his quarterback. So it's just getting tired. And that's what's going to drive change this at the end of this season. Mary listened to him. Zimmer tells Mahomes he just needs to hand the balls off. I think Zimmer loves explosive plays. He said it. He's done it. He even liked it with back in 2017. He just cringed at some of the YOLO balls. It's just, I think he's worn. I think he needs a new scenery, maybe take a year off, maybe retire and live his life out with his Maxim model girlfriend. You know, that's not a bad life. Nice ranch, go hunting, got a Maxim model girlfriend. Hey, that's winning the lottery for a lot of people. So, who knows? Let's see. What else did you want to talk about? Are the injuries too much to overcome?
We'll see that next week. I think next week we get a real good look at that. So next week we play the Lions, kind of this, again, another bottom dweller team. The Lions played the Bears. Who did they play last week? They almost won, but they didn't. I can't remember who it was, but they played out. They almost won. I think they're still winning.
Because I called the Lions to get their first game, and they didn't. They lost at the end. Damn Lions.
So they're like this. They're just scrappy team. They took us to almost overtime, or did they take us to overtime? Oh, no. We went on like a field goal, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they almost beat us last time on some weird stuff. So we get a get right game, and that's something that we've needed for a long time. The last time
we get back to 500 right again.
Right, and that's what we needed. That's what we been looking for. Last time we got a get right game was against the Cowboys. The Cowboys gifted us a backup quarterback, and we messed it up. So let's not mess it up this time around.
I'm sure it's the winning personality.
I am looking forward to seeing how Clint Kubiak calls his offense without Dalvin Cook. Yeah, nice to have him in the chat. Nice to have the engagement. I'm looking forward to seeing Clint Kubiak adjusted to Dalvin Cook, seeing how he uses Nwangu, how he uses Madison, if he starts to focus more on Jefferson and Thielen. He has 2 games to do it, and before we got the Rams after the Steelers, you said, right? Before we get back into that.
No, we got Lions, Steelers, Bears. Oh my!
Well, we get 3 really solid games in a row. The Bears' offense looks awful. It does not look like it's fixing anytime soon. Steelers' offense looks terrible too. So we're playing 3 pretty bad offenses in a row. So the defense gets a chance to rejuvenate itself. They also get some get right games before we start to play the Packers again, play the Rams again, and hopefully we can win these next 3 games and be able to drop one of those games. We got lucky yesterday because of the early slate of games. We were able to drop that game against the 49ers and still be in the playoffs. We have a few tiebreakers, but I'm looking for them to put up a dominant performance. We only have 1 dominant performance this year, and that was against the Seattle Seahawks, which historically we lose to with Russell Wilson, which is kind of crazy. So I'm looking for some dominant performances back to back to back. We still this team has yet to even beat up on the bad team. So they don't really belong anywhere. They're still kind of in that lingo, or as Pro Football Talk, what's his name? Florio calls it Purple Purgatory.
Mike Florio, who is a Vikings fan.
Right. So that's what I'm looking for these next couple of weeks, is to see some dominant performances on both sides of the football. Let's get all this stuff, and get it all working at the same time. That's what I'm looking for as you start to get towards the playoffs. We need that run. We need to be the hottest team getting into the playoffs.
And we need to be confident by then. Here's your schedule.
Confidence, competent, consistent. The 3 C's.
We got Lions week 13, Steelers week 14, Bears, Rams, Green Bay, and then Chicago again.
So I mean, the way the season started, you can't really ask for a better 3-game stretch. I mean, you get 2 divisional games, You get those divisional games are huge. We're the 7th seed because of our divisional record. So the Lions and Steelers are 2 must-win games. The Lions and Bears, you have to win those games. And then the Steelers is another good test of kind of separating yourself from those teams that kind of don't really belong. We failed our first one. We get another one with the Steelers. And you just want to see them, take that next step forward and stop kind of teetering that line between being bad and being good.
Mm-hmm. But the Steelers are bad right now. Hopefully Ben Roethlisberger is still playing by the time we play him, because he is.
I don't think they have anybody else. They don't have anybody else. We can play Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph.
He needs to retire. But we could easily win 4 of those last games and get in there at 9-8, like people thought. And at the beginning of the season, and squeak into the playoffs. But if you're peaking and have confidence, then you can make a run. But you got to get there first.
Yeah, this is one of the, at least offensively, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL when they're playing with confidence. There is not a defense. I'm not seeing, maybe the only defense that I would say that can come in and comfortably and competently stop this offense is maybe the Buccaneers, because they have players on every 3 levels, 2 to 3 players on every level.
But we know last year we gave them a good game. Clifford 9-8.
Right. So it's when this offense is playing with confidence and every player is playing with confidence, this is one of the best offenses in the NFL, and it's damn near unstoppable. So that's what we need to do. Take these 3 games, get your swagger back, go into Green Bay. We play Green Bay first. We play the Rams first. Play Green Bay first. Go into Green Bay and the Rams. Oof, I got the schedule all kinds of mixed up in my head. I just know we play football games on Sunday.
Steel trap mind from Deshaun.
Listen, I wake up every Sunday and expect the game to be at 1:00. It is a total surprise to me when these games are at 4:25. I'm just when did this happen? Every single week, I'm just ew, a 4:25 game is awful.
Well, this week it should be noon. Typical.
Yeah, I think it's a noon game. So, yeah, get your swagger back, man. Go into LA, and teams have been beating up on LA as of late. The 49ers beat up on LA. The Packers just beat up on LA. Let's be another one of those teams to not let these star players run our games.
We'll see, but we're probably going to do that against San Francisco, and we obviously
we couldn't. Right.
We kept it within a score like every game this season.
And I think it's so funny that he missed the field goal and it ended up being 1 score. That's hilarious. That's divine intervention right there. He just misses the field goal to keep it 1 score. That's the football guys playing with our hearts.
Yes.
All right, it's almost that time, man. Anything else you want to add?
No, other than tomorrow night, it's questionable whether we'll have climbing the pockets in the huddle. I will let you all know. We may not, but we will have happy hour, and we will have Vikings hot takes on Thursday. Woohoo! The no longer available Flip Mozzie and Eric Thompson will be here. They've already told me. They told me yesterday they will be making it, so we will have that show. And if you haven't heard, the good news is Flip Mozzie is now off the market. Sorry, ladies. It happens. He is engaged and will be married to a beautiful young lady. And I wish him all the blessings in the world. Until then.
Congrats on the lifetime contract, Flip.
Yeah, the lifetime contract. Yeah, I wonder if he contracted OTC over to Cap for that. Trust me, for someone who's been married as long as I have and then got divorced, it costs you. And sort of, I heard, speaking of contracts and marriage, Kirk Cousins' contract is similar to that. And that's a lot of ways they view football contracts that way. If you get rid of them, how much dead cap do you get? Well, that's sort of like the divorce contract. Does she get half? It's just the way it is. Guys, unfortunately, we lost the game this week. It happens. We're here to turn your Monday purple. I don't know what to say We have a bunch of angst, but at least we can laugh. And eventually, you got to know, mathematically, it has to happen. The Vikings will go on to win the Super Bowl. Hopefully it's before we're dead, but it will happen just like the Cubs won after 100 years. It has to happen. So keep that in mind. Keep positive. Keep safe. Keep healthy. We know Omicron variant is coming to the United States. So
we got a Decepticon as the virus, man.
That's right. So, Mary, that's a great idea. Can we do the wedding? That would be great. CTV Live does Flip Mozzie's wedding. I gotta run it by him. But that sounds like a great idea.
Might have to hit the gritty on stage, man. Get a gritty line going.
The number one cause of divorces, man. You got that right, man. G-Mac, thanks for joining us. Mary, thanks for joining us. Everybody, Raymond, as always, Skol Vikings!
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you're listening on your favorite aggregator, make sure you rate us. And always feel free to join the conversation here at Climbing the Pike.